Dionne Warwick came to the Scepter Records studio in New York in 1961 as a backup singer. She left as something else. Not because she asked for it, not because she pushed for it. Because Burt Bacharach heard her voice during a playback and stopped the session and asked her a question that changed the direction of both their careers. The question was, "Can you come back Thursday?" Sandra Ames was 23 years old and had been the session scheduler and front desk manager at Scepter Records on West 54th Street for 14 months when Dionne Warwick first came through the door. Her job required the specific organizational competence of someone who manages multiple moving parts simultaneously. The session bookings, the musician availability, the studio time, the constant calibration of who needed to be where at what time for which project. She was good at it. She had learned in 14 months to observe what happened in the sessions she wasn't technically present for by reading the room when people came out of it. She had scheduled the November session as a standard backup vocal date. 3 singers, 2 hours, standard rate. Dionne Warwick was one of the 3. Marie Dionne Warwick was born on December 12, 1940, in East Orange, New Jersey, into a family where music was not an activity, but an atmosphere. Her mother, Mansell Warwick, managed the Drinkard Singers, one of the most respected gospel groups in the Northeast. Her aunt was Cissy Houston, who would later be Whitney Houston's mother and one of the most in-demand session singers in New York. Dionne had grown up surrounded by professional musicianship, had absorbed from childhood not just how music sounded, but how it worked, how sessions were run, what the difference was between a singer who could perform and a singer who could record. She was attending the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, and commuting to New York for session work. Backup vocal work was how young singers built the network and the experience that led to other things. She was good at it, precise, reliable, capable of blending and of holding a part and of giving the producer what they asked for without requiring them to explain it twice. Burt Bacharach was in his early 30s in 1961 and had been writing songs for recording artists and producing sessions for nearly a decade without yet finding the specific configuration that would define his career. He was working at Scepter Records as a house arranger and producer, working with Hal David, his songwriting partner, on material they were placing with various artists. He had a specific sense of what he was looking for in a voice. Not power necessarily, not range in the conventional sense, but something more particular. The ability to deliver a melodically complex lyric in a way that made the complexity feel inevitable, that made the intervals sound natural, that carried the emotional content of the lyric without subordinating it to the technical demands of the melody. Most voices, in his experience, could do one or the other. He was looking for a voice that could do both without appearing to be trying. During the November session, a standard backup date for a Scepter recording project, the 3 backup singers ran through their parts while Burt Bacharach supervised the arrangement from the control room. The session proceeded as scheduled. At some point during a playback, Burt asked the engineer to isolate the center channel. He heard Dionne's voice alone. He asked the engineer to run it again. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he went to the talkback and asked if the singer in the center position could stay after the session. Sandra was at her desk when the backup session ended, and 2 of the 3 singers came out through the hallway and signed out on her sheet. The third, the young woman from New Jersey, the one who commuted up from Hartford, did not come out. Sandra assumed the session had run long, which happened. She went back to her scheduling work. About 45 minutes later, Dionne Warwick came out of the studio hallway. Sandra looked up. She asked if everything was all right. Dionne said yes. She said she was coming back on Thursday. Then she picked up her coat and left. Sandra asked the engineer the next day what had happened. He told her what Bacharach had done with the isolated channel, the playback, the pause, the talkback request. He said that Bacharach had kept her in the studio and played her a melody he had been working on with Hal David. He had played it on the piano. He had asked her to sing it back. She had sung it back the first time accurately enough that he played her a second one. She sang that one back too. By the third, he had asked her to try it with specific phrasing, and what she had done with the phrasing had produced in him the recognition he had been, without knowing it, waiting for. The Thursday session produced a demo. The demo produced an agreement. The agreement produced Dionne Warwick's first single on Scepter Records, Don't Make Me Over, released in November of 1962. It reached number 5 on the R&B chart and number 21 on the pop chart. It introduced Burt Bacharach and Hal David as the songwriting team behind one of the most distinctive voices in American popular music. It was the first of 22 chart hits that Dionne Warwick would record with the Bacharach-David combination over the next 10 years. Anyone Who Had a Heart, Walk On By, which reached the top 5 in 1964 and became one of the most covered songs of the decade. Message to Michael, I Say a Little Prayer. Do you know the way to San Jose? This Girl's in Love with You. Each one a demonstration of what Bacharach had heard in the isolated channel on a November afternoon in 1961. A voice that could carry melodic complexity without effort, that made the difficult intervals sound like the only possible intervals, that delivered emotional content and technical precision simultaneously without sacrificing either. Dionne Warwick was nominated for a Grammy Award 5 times between 1963 and 1969. She won twice. She was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. She received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. Sandra Ames left Scepter Records in 1966. She managed scheduling at 2 other New York labels before leaving the music business to raise a family. She kept the story of the November session the way you keep a thing that you understand mattered before you fully understand why. She had been a few yards away from what happened. She had watched 2 people come out of a studio at the end of a normal session and had seen one of them not come out on schedule, which in session work is not unusual and usually means nothing. This time it meant something. She said, I've been the person at the front desk of a recording operation. I know what the ordinary sessions look like and what the other kind looks like. You can almost always tell, from where I was sitting, which kind you're having. Sometimes the thing that changes everything starts in a perfectly ordinary session, and you can't see it from the desk. You can only see it on Thursday, when the person comes back. Dionne Warwick came back on Thursday. She kept coming back. The partnership she formed with Burt Bacharach and Hal David defined her career and defined a significant portion of American popular music across an entire decade. It started with an engineer being asked to isolate a channel and a producer going quiet, and a young woman from New Jersey being asked if she could come in on Thursday. She could come in on Thursday, that was all, and the rest of it followed from that. Subscribe to Untold Soul Legends. Every week we find the moments behind the music that changed everything. The comment section is open. Tell us which soul legend story you want to hear next. If this one stayed with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today.